Hello and welcome to this episode of Trident Talks. I'm Rosie, a senior consultant over at Trident, and I'm delighted to be joined by Roy, the CEO and one of the founders over at Orchid Security. Before I kind of ramble on and we jump into all the questions and find out more about Orchid, it would be great just to understand a little bit about kind of yourself and what really got you to the position you're in today.
Absolutely. So first, I'm happy to be here today, and it's great that you invited us. I'm a veteran in this market. I'm doing more than 20 years. It's most likely my fifth or maybe sixth product that I'm launching from scratch. Not my first rodeo in the startup life as well, but going kind of a little backward. I joined a VC of friends maybe 2.5 years ago, did ideation for them. I took a sabbatical, and that was just after I finished at 3 years in Fortinet. They acquired my previous company in the endpoint space. We ran it for 5.5 years. Did almost everything in security, I think, from network to endpoint, now to identity, for larger, for smaller, publicly, privately, just have one, and I've been there, I guess. But I'm always happy to start anew, fresh, and so here we are again.
Love that. You've touched all areas of security, giving you, I guess, like quite a vast background and knowledge. Thinking about, I guess, then Orchid kind of specifically, and I think it's always interesting when starting these conversations to discuss kind of the founding story as well. Was there kind of a specific like moment that made you think this is an issue that we kind of need to tackle, or something that you saw, I guess, in the space?
So it's a very good question, at least at my end, because in previous startups that I did, I usually came with something that I experienced firsthand and thought to myself, why does it need to be this way? And came with a solution and validated throughout my kind of trial and error in the market. But I decided that I want to be more focused this time, and actually took the advantage of the fact that I could have said, and I got the opportunity to go back to a teammate, which is more of a foundry. And that's a VC that is a little different, where, they're very much focused on pains. And now I would say that whether the thesis was a little light, and it wasn't the first thesis. I was looking at thesis in general. Mm-hmm. But when you're seeking for pain, it's way easier because you're coming to the unknown. So you're very open to learn, and you're very much open to double click on everything because you really don't know. And this is how it all started. One of the theses was on identity. And, always kind of, when entrepreneurs kind of think, so what is the moment? There's a moment that and you think like, yeah, it's great on love on first sight, but it doesn't really work this way. And it takes you some time. So it's a baking kind of process where one of the things that I liked a lot that gave me a good idea that identity is a good one, because there were a lot of feelings. So we heard the word I hate, and which, it's a strong word, but usually you don't hate a solution. It's a technology. And so when you see feelings, you're hitting a pain. It's like, an MD that pushes you on the right button, and you jump, and he's like, okay, here is the pain. That is the pain, but the pain was all over. And that made it a challenge, but I'm sure we'll cover that later on. But when you're hearing that type of emotions involved, you're up to something. And now when you're seeking for pains, it really opens you up to, now I got a pain. Now you're moving to the solution as opposed to going vice versa, if that makes sense.
And do you think that's something, I guess, you've learned over kind of the 20 plus years and working with all these different products? Do you think that, I guess, like thesis has changed kind of over your career? Because I speak to kind of founders on a daily through podcasts or just conversations. And like you said, I think a lot of them maybe see like a gap in the market and they think we can fix that. From what you're saying, it's more of like that pain point and the feelings that you're witnessing. Has that always been your thesis, or something kind of more recent?
I would love to say that I'm that smart, but I'm not. And so I like everybody else, I started with something that I experienced firsthand and try to solve it and think that you solved it and everybody else should suffer from the same. That's not how, when you're trying to sell in scale, that's going to work. And kind of think about it. I always, when I speak to a lot of new entrepreneurs, I always say it's like, it's the ugly baby syndrome. Every mom thinks it's the beautiest thing on earth,
Yeah.
and and it's exactly the same what happens. Startup is a newborn. If you think about it, and you sell yourself, well, maybe this guy didn't like it because they are who they are, or yeah, maybe they think they're competing with them, but we are completely different. And a lot of us has a lot of technology background. And so we kind of know, well, there's a lot of changes, but you need to think that in the go-to-market motion, it doesn't really count. And so you need to find a big enough pain. And so actually starting with a pain and not with a solution that maybe works great for you in the environment that you're in. The question is, how many are actually going to join? And even if a lot of us are just saying, well, we do have an access to 30, 40, 50, professionals, and we verified that. And I always say, they like you, right? You know them. They know you
Yeah.
too. You got your prestige. It makes sense. So your reputation is something that kind of pollute the entire process. And so, but if you're going for a pain and nobody knows how to answer, you say, I got something. It's way stronger. If it is a real pain and you can validate that, then the sky's the limit, and the sizing could be very significant, as opposed to just kind of getting your own vision and see if others sharing the vision of your solution. Easier to go on a pain.
Makes sense. I think we'll kind of dig into this a lot more throughout kind of the conversation today. But to keep on the point about kind of the founding story that we're on at the moment, obviously the founding team and the people is kind of just as important really as the product. And of course yourself, Robert and Ido, like the co-founders that have got Orchid kind of off the ground, all bring in, I guess, deep expertise in cybersecurity and obviously the identity space. How did you three kind of come together? And I guess, was there any kind of stories early on of customer insights that kind of shaped the focus initially?
100%. The nice thing of not being a first timer is that you're going with people that already, been there, done that. Ido is one of them. So Ido, I'm working with for, I don't know, 13 years.
Wow.
And we met in a big company, when he was a distinguished engineer, basically responsible for almost any initiative in engineering. And Robert is actually, so he went a long way with me. He was also a founder in Insider, which was my previous company. And of course, it was easy, that's the core, just like you said, that it's the core team. There are no elephants in the room. There's, everything needs to be on the table, because at some point they're going to get out. And so you want to be in control of that. It's really the point of putting it out there. So having somebody that you know for that long, and it's not just knowing him, it's you've been in the same trenches for that long. You've been there, you've done that, the good, bad, and ugly. So you know how to deal with this. Robert
Yeah.
was a different way, because as I mentioned, I came from a foundry. And in a foundry, so Robert was actually the manager that was responsible for the foundry, for the VC. Now, for me, it was compelling in two ways. First, I saw, throughout the process, which we did for almost 9 months, um, I saw him in action. So I saw that he's very technical, but he's also very strong on the operation. So I'm thinking, I know what to do with you in the first phase. And again, no elephants in the room. We have roles for the first 6 months, and we have roles for after 6 months. So no surprises for anybody. We knew exactly where the transition is going to happen, what's going to be the role setup. But he actually came to us once we cracked the thesis and had a solution and started to say, okay, we're getting somewhere here. He actually came and said, that is very, very strong. Is somebody sitting, so I said in two ways. The first is somebody who already have that gravity and have seen so many sessions like this is coming and saying, I see the uniqueness. For me, it's another point of validation. So, and the fact that he wants to join is a very strong testimonial for me that I'm on to something, but that's unrelated to the strong of the team.
Yeah.
But I think his operational things, so Ido is a very engineering innovator that knows how to crack things, great on POCs, getting things fast and done. Robert is better on the operations of it. So, you will have to have something very quick, but then you need to think how you're going to scale it, where are going to be the other problems, and you need to build for that. Well, I'm sure we talk more about that, and this is exactly where Robert, so we built like a little, I would say, circle, a continuous circle between us. So I I took the product side of it and a go-to-market. So I had a huge document of how we're going to address this. What are we thinking? 3 years ahead, kind of a 90 pages that nobody wants to read, but you have to.
Yeah.
Robert was the operator, and I kind of handed over both to Robert and Ido. Ido was, okay, here's your MVP that we're building right now. Robert was, okay, and here are we had 17 design partners that we worked with. Any feature within the product that we did, we released our first product in 10 months. We actually started selling it after 11 months and had revenues in 12 months.
That's insane.
And all of those are actually where, the first 3 customers that onboarded were Fortune 500s. So it's not just the challenge of having, okay, we had a small deal. You're talking on hundreds of thousands a year contract with a startup that this is all it has. This is where we were. And so the operationalize of this, because we knew that in the go-to-market, we're going to go to the super large enterprises. I knew that operations are going to be very important. So shifted to Ido, you build this is your MVP, and then shifted that to Robert. You work with the field and get us the feedbacks of how do we think from scratch, just like those little whiteboard sessions. Here is how it's going to look, to a Figma, to a first design, to kind of try this and actually follow them. But all this operation-wise, field-wise, Robert, I was the head of the, sitting on top of it and see what comes next. And Ido was developing it as we move. And so the feedback was going on between the 3 of us all the time.
Awesome. I think kind of touching upon what you kind of said at the beginning as well, it's being able to be so open and honest with each other, because you've obviously had experience of working with each other before. And I don't think a lot of founders, especially not first-time founders, can really say they've had that experience as well. And it's being able to, I guess, pull each other up on kind of the day-to-day responsibilities or the product feedback or customer insights. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of see, I guess, where Orchid was not just kind of founded from, but who it was founded from as well. I would love to kind of, I guess, zoom in more to the product now, and I will try my hardest to get as technical as possible. But obviously the concept of kind of identity first security orchestration is kind of central to what you guys do as a platform. Could you describe, I guess, and go as technical as you want, but for listeners that maybe aren't as familiar with Orchid, kind of what is this? What is the product?
Maybe I'll start with a challenge. One of the things, and it's not as, people think that you're getting a call and you're getting a pain, and actually it's all over the place. And it's not really what you're thinking, because yeah, we were thinking like anybody else. Okay, so there's a product that can do, and what we got in was a few fundamentals came to us as we were talking to people, because we double-clicked. We are very good in asking questions, not necessarily on answering them, but very good on having questions.
Yeah.
And what we learned was that identity by nature is different than anything else, especially when you're coming from so many other products. Listen, if I'm going to say, Rosie, I want to protect your computer, I'm going to put something on it, it's going to protect your computer. Then you would have asked me, Roy, what do I need to do? I'm saying, nothing, actually. Just put that on and it's going to work out of the box. But that's the nature of security. Usually it's frictionless. You put us in, we'll provide you the added value. Not in identity. You take identity, and let's talk, what is identity? Identity is actually, if you're looking for a very high level, has 2 main components to it. Authentication, knowing that Roy is who he claims he is, right? Those logins and names and password and messages and all of the things that we really like. And then the other side of it is the authorization. Okay, Roy is who he claims is. That's great. What can he do? What type of entitlement should I assign to Roy to make him do his work efficiently, right? That's the thing. Now, what's different in identity is that think any tool that you're going to have in either one of those, authentication or authorization, you deploy it and nothing happens. You don't get the annoying message. Why is that? Because there is an onboarding. They're going to tell you, oh, you want this app of the bank to send you the message. Well, at some point you need to connect that app into that solution of identity that you purchased with your best money out there. Great. But wait a second. That app was written 9 months ago. The solution was just acquired in. Why would that app know how to talk to this solution, which uses its own proprietary connectivity? It doesn't. Now, fast forward, on average, an enterprise will have 1,200 applications, 9 different identity solutions, and the connectivity between them is actually subject to compliance. Now think about it. It's not just doing it as a one-time. It's dynamic. The app will change the auditors are going to change the compliance. And due to emerging technologies, vendor shifting, M&As, just name one, the vendors are changing as well. So it is keep on changing. That thing creates what we call the fragmentation of identity. Or the way Orchid likes to call it, the dark matter. Think about it. You got 1,200 applications. You're going to do one by one, go back to the code, write yourself a way to connect to the new solution, and keep on doing it all the time for a velocity of 1,200 apps. You're never going to make it.
Yeah.
That is where we started with this, and this is where we understood that this is a huge thing. Now, going back to what Orchid is doing, we understood, and we can talk about surprises, we understood that we need to understand your assets that are subject to compliance. We need to understand what tools you already have and paid for. And we need to make sure that we can identify what are you missing within those control, because you are subject to compliance and security frameworks, and find them, assess them, and mitigate them with your own tools. Because the one nice thing about identity, it has the magical, super self-healing ability to it. So, oh, you don't have the right, it's not complex enough, your password. Well, connect it to your identity provider and you can do it as an overlay, and then you can control it. And so a lot of those are possible if you know what you're missing. And if you can actually connect, which both of them are super hard. It's already fragmented because the onboarding itself is very expensive, lengthy, and tedious actually.
Yeah.
And that's what Orchid is building. So we discover, we assess, and we allow you to do governance through orchestration. So actually connect you automatically, no code, no application owners, no engineering. Think about it, just do your job. See what's missing and fix it right there with the click of a button. Don't ask for anybody. You're the king of your kingdom.
Love that. Thank you for, I guess, giving that kind of overview, especially for our listeners. And I'm sure they've definitely come across Orchid before, but to kind of hear it straight from yourself, it's always very kind of beneficial for listeners and for us as well. When kind of, I guess, building something like this, what do you think, I guess, the hardest technical or organizational kind of challenge like you faced with this, and how did you overcome it?
It's a very good question. And again, I'll take you back to the point of starting with the pain. So we understood the pain. It took us a long time. It was all over the place. And then we said, wait a second, they can do this and these guys can do that. And it was really all over the place. But when you kind of digest it, it was like, well, there's no infrastructure for identity, actually. There's an infrastructure for network. There's an infrastructure for endpoints and assets, but there's no infrastructure for identity. Therefore, and due to the complex onboarding thing, it is really, really hard. And so we said, we got a problem. The downside, there are 1,200 applications. They were written at a different point of time by different people. They're hosted differently. Just name the word different and it applies. Anything like, wait a second. So let's go back to what are we trying to say? We want to take applications, there vary so much, and say, we understand all of you, and we can, in a way that we can assess you, and actually we know you so well that we can connect you to the ecosystem of identity within the enterprise. Well, good luck with that. You basically trying to say, I'm going to solve something generic for something that is custom by design. That's a disconnect in the way. And so I would admit that it took us a long time to actually say, we think we can crack it. And that was the biggest challenge, was how can we provide something generic in an enterprise scale with a velocity of 1,200 applications to something that is designed by design different. And so that disconnect was the biggest challenge, and it was a technical challenge. But, luckily, I guess, the timing was right, and LLMs came in and co-pilots came in. And this is where we understood that there is an actual breakthrough, not just from business challenges, but also there is now new technologies with prompt engineering and telemetry and co-pilots that can actually give you in runtime and sit without any engineers, understand the application and provide you insights of how it works. That was the first breakthrough.
And I guess, like you said there was a gap in the market for it as well. And then everything else kind of not fell into place. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of hard work behind it. But it was almost like the industry kind of needed something like Orchid, it seems. Do you think, obviously, you raised a huge and a very strong seed round, numbers that we don't really see too often kind of in the cyberspace. And like you mentioned earlier, you were able to kind of onboard quite very large enterprise customers very quickly as well. What do you think, I guess, the biggest lessons that you guys have learned, and this could be across kind of product or customer insights, when you moved forward from kind of product market fit to these enterprise sales? Were there any, I guess, surprises or pivots in product?
All of the above. You know, we really thought that we cracked it, and we came. I remember, as I mentioned, we worked with design partners. So there is no feature in this product to date that was not something that was suggested. Actually, we have internal names for these features for the people that actually raised them and said, no, we're not consuming it this way. You need to see us doing it. And so we went on site. I went in 27 different customers and actually seen it from firsthand. This is how we're using it, and thinking, okay, let's see more. Let's make sure that this is really how everybody. But back to your questions, you know, we came and said, you give us an app, we'll understand it, provide you the assessment, and enable you to onboard it, to govern through orchestration. Beautiful, right? And then we came to you know, and everybody agreed, and we were like applauding, yeah, we cracked it. And so we went to our design partners, and the first thing we said, well, where's the app that you want us to analyze? They're like, we don't know. We know the name of it. Like, no. Where is it? Like, is it a SaaS? Is it on premises? Is it a cloud vendor? Where is it? Physically, where is it? How can we refer to? Where is it? Like, we don't know. Like, okay, that's a bad start. How are we going to do anything about it if you can't point me to where exactly it is? And so it may sound very basic, but then you see, because under the regulatory requirement, you're supposed to have an ongoing inventory of your applications, but they're doing it with, for example, most of them will do it with a global system integrator. They're going to come in, they're going to do it, they're going to provide you a list, and they're going to go. And so you really don't know. Mm. And so the first surprise was there is no application inventory. And so we need to come up with one. And it's really a prerequisite now for everything, because we can't start without this. So it's not, oh, maybe we'll prioritize it later. So the entire MVP changed to, we need a discovery mechanism. They don't know where the apps are. So those type of surprises are very, I think, common. It didn't change a lot in the technology. So, you know, it wasn't any pivot or anything that we need to do, but it was definitely something we thought we're going to have. You know, don't forget, we had an ideation for 9 months. So we kind of played around with a lot of prototypes and a lot of things. So we thought we were going to be 7, 8 months. Eventually it took us 11 months. And that's exactly the discovery side of it. And, you know, with everything around, always a surprise.
Always a surprise. I think anything in the security space, you come up against stuff like this. So it's just interesting, I guess, to see kind of what those customer insights are. And it's just something to, I guess, be aware of as well. On that point, I guess, of everything kind of changing, and I'm sure you see it kind of over the last 20 years or so. And obviously, I think identity is a massive discussion at the moment. We're talking to identity players kind of every single day, and of course yourself as well. And there's some major kind of growth levers at the moment, I think, and pivots changing. And I guess it might be like a hard to pinpoint this kind of next question, but what do you think is going to change within the next kind of 6 to 12 months? I guess in the space, but also specifically with Orchid as well.
You mentioned a lot of pieces here. Like you mentioned, first, identity is the new parameter. And that's true. You know, I think if that wasn't clear to people, I think Palo Alto making a move on CyberArk made it very clear what they're thinking. But there's a reasoning behind that. It's not by any chance that they picked a vendor out there. It is very specific, and they knew exactly what they were doing. But that goes back to the story that we have to tell here. First, Orchid is not I would say it's not an identity player per se. We're an infrastructure that helps you to consume your identity. That's really who we are. We're not coming to say, hey, we're going to replace your CyberArk or we're going to replace your enterprise Entra. We're not an identity provider per se. I don't have features that are identity. I would give you what do you have? How's it actually positioned and assessed? And then your own tools, you can fix it, and I'll make this seamless for you so you can actually govern whatever you need to do. Don't think about the underlying pieces, do support, don't support, it doesn't matter anymore. But I think there is, if we talked before about the breakthrough in technology, I can talk more about it, the breakthrough in why did we decide to do Orchid now? Yes, there is a technology way of now maybe solving it, but do we really need to solve it, right? Is any need for that? And the reasoning is very simple. If you're looking historically, we had everything on premises, right? In the late 90s and early 2000s. And we had 3 or 4 identity and access management vendors, and everything was on premises. That means the applications were developed internal. We didn't have too many apps. We didn't have too many solutions. And even then, the fragmentation or what we call the dark matter was around 30% because you need to prioritize. You're not going to onboard everything. It's too much work. 30%, not that bad. 7 out of 10, you're pretty fine. Then we had the cloud booming, right? And so, hey, so easy. There's no need for another server. You can just go to Google, Amazon, or Microsoft and look how fast you can do those. So the application boomed now, the velocity have made it huge. And of course, it brought in more vendors that can do more stuff, more vendors, more apps. We lost 46% and the dark matter went that high that we're actually looking right now. We're managing only half of the identities. Think we're walking with one eye, basically. No perception for us. How can we get good educational, kind of educated decisions? Different question, but why now even further? Agent AIs are coming in. Now, everybody wants to talk about it. Not a lot of them are doing it, but it's going to happen. It's the new no code. Think about it. You can ask anything you want. So you can go to your old app and ask, who ran the last task on you? And it's actually going to give you, what are you doing? You can ask everything now in a human kind of language, which is amazing. But think about it. Now, Rosie is getting the perfect app that she wants. And how is it going to work with you? You're going to run something, but who is it running right now? How is it going to work with compliance? There is an agent that runs on your behalf. You're the operator. What is the relationship? Now, when I'm reading the audit, I'm going to see, well, agent AI X is doing that. Who asked for it to do that?
Yeah.
And maybe even take it further. Well, who said that you, Rosie, can actually use this agent right now? Maybe this agent has more privilege that you have. Maybe it's going to answer things that you shouldn't even see. So how do I make that on par with you? How do I retire those agents? A lot of things are working in what we call just in time on a need to know basis. Well, that thing is running forever. Who is challenging this thing? So there's so many questions and so many automated fashion of it and the audit and so it breaks the entire model. And this is kind of, if I'm looking into identity and why infrastructure for identity now, it's because if it was fragmented with a decent dark matter before, we're going to lose everything completely eyesight over what's going on. And we're managing the manage, which is become it's become narrower as we move forward.
Yeah, it's interesting about kind of the, I guess, agentic AI space, because when I'm kind of having conversations with anyone, to be honest, it's the conversation that's really the hot topic, anything to do with AI. But I think, like you said there, kind of the AI agents is what we're really discussing on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, and most people are thinking of it as like a positive for their organizations. And even for us as like headhunters, it's what freeing up 30% of our time we get back so we can actually do our job and talk to more people and jump on more podcasts and anything like that. But when you're kind of bringing up there the challenges that you guys are seeing in the identity space, or the fragmented dark matter, I should say, it's interesting to maybe see like the risk behind it as well. It's just a different perspective, because I feel like the conversations I have is very much like it's a breakthrough and it's incredible, and obviously it didn't really exist about a year ago. So interesting just to hear kind of that different perspective.
It's more than just that. you know, when you going, it shows you, like, you need to understand that we're always driving to the newest and greatest, but think about it. They're not seeing 46% right now with before these automated, non-governed, non-challenged on authentication tools are running. They don't see it. You know, when I recently met with a very, I would say, one of the biggest CISOs in the banking space. And he's responsible for almost any federation, any compliance. Of course, he's a CISO in one of the top 5. And I asked him, are you looking for solutions? Because as an infrastructure, I can provide you a safe MCP that will provide you the audit, everything out of the box, so you can consume whatever you need, you know, again, as an infrastructure. And he said, you know, Roy, have you tried the ice cream across the street? It's like, what? I said, I didn't. He said, you know, if somebody will come and tell me right now, I'm going to solve your agentic AI identities right now, I would tell him, that's an awesome cream. But I didn't select, I don't have a cone right now. I'm missing half of my things. I don't have the space to put it. And so you're putting a cream on something that you're like, you're really at the top penthouse without having a base. They don't have the base. Yeah. Do you need to address it? Yes, absolutely, because it's going to get worse. But don't forget, the foundation are not there. And so it's not just about the infrastructure of the future. It's, don't forget, there's a presence and there's a past, and they're all coming with a big heritage there.
All come
that you
together.
Need to address.
Yeah.
100%.
Got to make sure, like, your mind hurt. No, but I really appreciate this kind of conversation today, and just to kind of get to understand Orchid a bit more, and I guess, like I said, the founding story and the technology, and we can of course kind of hopefully over the next few months dive a lot more into kind of what you guys are doing. As you mentioned, kind of changing space. What are we kind of expecting from Orchid over the next, I guess, year or so? Is it kind of expanding in capabilities or teams, or I guess what can you say?
I would say that we're looking into infrastructure that is built out of 3 main pillars. We started with a lot of visibility. You have to know in order to assess. And so the first thing that came out was, hey, we have an application inventory. Guess what? You know, continuously, all the time. The next was, okay, we can assess them. But again, bear in mind that the coverage is like anything else. The tail is super long. So we kind of dealt with the middle mass, but still, you know, we got a pretty significant, and you asked me a good question before, you know, you started with the large enterprises. Well, that's great. The check sizes are awesome. We're happy to take them. But don't forget the amount of requirements are also extreme, and some of them are super customized because they're doing a lot in-house and have their own proprietary stuff. And yes, they do want you to work with that, so it's not something that's just to ignore. And so that's also have a heavy toll on the company. We're just always trying to be very focused on what we're doing and being very transparent again by telling them, here's the elephant. We're not going to do that. Well, we're going to do another 23 things that you asked, but this one, we're not going to do. It really doesn't work with us. But going back to this, we start with visibility. You need to know. Now, we're going to come with I think in a month or so, we're going to come up with a new kind of way to address dark matter in the way that we think it's supposed to be by infrastructure. So that's another insight that will make you have a perfect visibility 2020, you know, just the way it should be, so you can make an educated decisions and translate that educated decisions into what we call the orchestration, the governance by orchestration. So we can connect to anything. But again, the connect of anything is, again, it's think about it, there are at least 30 or 40 vendors in the identity access management, as you said, and it's really booming right now. So there's going to be 100. All of them will need have the same challenges. So we need, again, to have more and more vendors. It's by the vendor that we are able to do this seamlessly orchestration with. It's hard, and it's by vendors, so that takes time. So again, we'll do more of this, but I'll snap you a little surprise on top of it. If we started a problem now, you know, our full history with saying, listen, identity is fragmented because it's by design, unfortunately, and we're developing identity infrastructure to be able for you to consume your true identity. That's awesome. So we came as plumbers, right? We kind of wore our jumpsuits and went straight in and said, oh, Rosie wants to put a hot tub in the middle of the living room. We're going to put, you know, the plumbing, and everything is going to be seamless. So no need to call with no holes in the walls. we're going to do this. Amazing. And so now everything flows, and that's great. But don't forget, we're looking at the cards. And we're thinking, well, can we put a solution on top of ours? Now, we're not going to be as good as any others, but we're going to cover everything. And we can be super dynamic by the insights because we see everything, because everything runs through our pipe. So we can take our jumpsuits and move away. Maybe we move to a button shirt and provide some products on top of it. And I think that's going to be a very nice change as well, to have a full capacity of identity in a one single place where you can consume your own, but you can actually also have something that is built in within the platform. And so that's kind of a little bit of our vision going forward.
Full visibility then, kind of like you mentioned. Well, I'm so excited to see kind of what the next 6 to 12 months look, and I'm sure all the listeners will be kind of following along very closely. In terms of if someone wanted to kind of reach out or learn more about Orchid, where would you recommend going?
I think our portal is almost, shares almost everything. You can demo it, you can play with it. We even have a sandbox of it, so you can do whatever, but leave your details. We're really on it and love to hear feedbacks. So welcome everybody to try.
Fantastic. And we'll send kind of links so that people can easily click on after this podcast and have a play around and get feedback and everything like that. But I really appreciate your time today. And we will follow the story closely.
Amazing. Thank you so much.